was happy in the haze of a drunken hour, but heaven knows I'm miserable now.
Good evening, everyone. This is Gene from NYC, and I'm back with another video. So first off, before I start the video, as always, I'd like to thank everyone who has, watched the videos, left comments, subscribed, commented. It always means so much. I'm so thankful that you're willing to take a little time out of your day to hear what I have to complain about this time. So this video is special, at least to me, because it's my first comic review in this style. I've done a few comic reviews in the past, usually just recounting them off the top of my head, or at times sort of making a hard copy and a review copy and doing a long review. So this is the first time I've actually put together a review on my own home computer and edited images and all that good stuff. It took a lot longer than I thought. So this is my first comic review ever since getting this computer, and now not having to print out pages upon pages upon pages to do a visual review and actually show you what I'm talking about, which I think is very important for comic books, because comic books are indeed a visual medium, and I believe that my critiques will come across better if you can actually see what I'm talking about. So I don't think I've ever done a short comic review in my life, though I will try to not make it an hour, but you never know. But anyway, so the comic I'm reviewing today is Glow issue 4. This, how do I put this? Reading this was a chore, but B, it's one of those things that I guess is just close to my heart because the comic is about pro wrestling. For those who don't know, Glow stands for the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It was a small promotion back in the mid-'80s that tried to, put some shine on the females. It didn't last too long, but it is one of those things that sort of paved the way. It's like you wouldn't really have, especially in the American pro wrestling industry, especially with big companies like, WWE, you really wouldn't have the women's division and the women's evolution, as they call it, today, if you didn't have those pioneers back in the 80s. So what I was hoping for from this comic was that it would be a love letter, right, to the hard work that female wrestlers in the 1980s put in, despite, struggling in the business, not quite getting the respect they deserved. Usually, especially back then, the only way a female wrestler got any shine, any attention, was if she was paired with a man, usually as a valet or a manager type character. Two of the most famous from the 1980s would probably be Miss Elizabeth, who was the real life wife of Randy Savage, and of course Sherry Martel, who had been a professional wrestler, but she's probably best remembered for being the manager of Randy Savage and the $1 Million Man and Shawn Michaels going into the 90s. If you're familiar with her work in WCW, she managed Harlem Heat. So women back then were more noticed for their looks than for their wrestling talent. This was especially true in the Attitude Era days, where your biggest star was Sable. And women like, Jacqueline Moore and Luna Vachon sort of got the shaft because they could wrestle, but they weren't, and they were visually beautiful, or at least interesting. Luna was beautiful in a very unconventional way, but they didn't have that sex appeal that Sable had. So, but that's 1990s. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So, what I was hoping for with this comic was sort of a love letter and a love letter to the hard work that women like, again, Sherry, Miss Elizabeth, even women prior to them like Mae Young, the Fabulous Moolah, Rockin' Robin, work that they had put in, trying to move the business forward, especially with the way it treated women. This comic does not do that. This comic is a wrestling comic in name only. The visuals are bland. There's no fighting, there's no excitement, there's no backstage politics, there's no drama, there's no nothing, there's not even handsome men. There's exactly one guy who is featured in this story, and he's an older man. He's not even an attractive older guy. So, again, there's nothing here. There's nothing here that resembles anything about pro wrestling, whether it be in the ring, whether it be in its history, whether it be in its backstage politics. There is absolutely nothing here. It's just a random string of events that happen. This is an awful comic, in my opinion. Again, awful art. It's very sparse. Nothing really visually exciting, and you need visual excitement for professional wrestling. You must, if you can't be beautiful, damn it, at least look cool. At least look interesting. But no, none of that happens. None of that happens at all in this comic book. It's just bland visuals after bland visuals after bland visuals. There's nothing exciting about it. It hurt my brain to have to read this twice. But anyway, enough ranting. Let me actually go over the comic itself and explain to you all why I am in such foul moods with this book. So, first we have the cover itself, right? This is just it's just pastel colors. Right, there's nothing visually interesting here. It's that Cal Art style that I personally just absolutely cannot stand. But yeah, this is pretty much what this comic amounts to. It's not even... the funny thing is that the comic is probably... not the comic, sorry. The cover is probably more violent than the comic itself. This may be one of the most talky comics I've ever read. And it's supposed to be action. Again, this is pro wrestling. You talk during promos. You fight during the match. This is how pro wrestling works, and yet all you get is talk, and more flippin' talk. It's awful. But anyway, so this is the cover, right? It just shows them grappling with each other. I mean, nothing really here that really stands out aside from the pastel colors. And then we have the creative team, if you want to call it that. I would not call this creative in the absolute least, but the people that we have to blame for this comic are Teenie Howard, Hannah Templar, Rebecca Nolte. That's the main group. You have letters and design by Krista Meissner, and then the editors are apparently Elizabeth Bray and Megan Brown, and then that's pretty much it. It says here, accompanying to the ring group editor is Bobby Curnow? I don't know. And then Liz Flavhive and Carly Minch. So it sounds like it's just a girl fest, which normally I wouldn't mind, because I know many of women who are big fans of pro wrestling. I'm a woman who's a big fan of pro wrestling. In fact, when I was in college, I was part of a web radio show at the college, and it was called Wrestling on the Rocks, and the host was Bianca's show. She was the host, and then there was Ashley, and then there was myself, and then another girl named Nell came on later. So it was a very fun experience. And as you would imagine, we talked mainly about pro wrestling, what was going on at the time, which I was in college, so it would have been the mid-2000s, from like '05 to about '07. And then we would talk about rock and roll, which at that time would have been stuff like Avenged Sevenfold and Buck Cherry and stuff like that. So, good times. But that's probably the one positive memory that this brings up in my mind is my time talking about pro wrestling. But as an issue, yeah, this has nothing to do with pro wrestling. But anyway, so now that we know who to blame, let's get to the story proper. 1 second. So here's well, it's not the first page. It's a few pages in. So they're talking about not wearing costumes. I don't understand this at all. This is talking about. It says here. I don't even know who the hell these people are. Their names aren't given. The cast of characters isn't even revealed until at the very last pages of the issue. And this issue is like 20-some pages. It's nearly 30 pages from cover to cover. And yet they don't tell you who the F is who. But anyway, right, we have some dialogue here saying, hey, I was just bringing you some stuff. And then it's like, we're not doing costumes. Costumes are for folks who can't bring talent to the card. Really? Really? Writer, Teenie Howard, have you ever seen pro wrestling a day in your life? This is a profession where the men are pretty and the women are pretty and everybody's in a costume and everybody's a damn peacock. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. You go tell Asuka that she's not a good wrestler because she wears a costume. Let's see where that lands you. But anyway, then this goes on to talk about rehearsing. The big girl here is talking about, we don't rehearse. My girls know how to work. Pro wrestling is all about teamwork and calling spots. And yeah, a bit of rehearsal. There's a lot of practice that goes on behind the scenes. In fact, one of the most famous matches in pro wrestling, the WrestleMania 3 match between Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, was meticulously thought out and rehearsed because, as many pro wrestling fans know, Randy Savage was a perfectionist. He did not tolerate mistakes. He thought every spot out. So it makes no sense for this woman here to be talking about we don't rehearse. True that there are some pro wrestlers who don't. Some prefer to work on the fly, but there is a lot of rehearsal and talking and mapping stuff out done prior to a match. See, it's stuff like this. It's like, if you don't like pro wrestling, if you don't know what it's about, if you're gonna write, frankly, objectively idiotic crap, like we're not doing costumes and we don't rehearse, why the hell are you writing a comic about pro wrestling if this is what you think it is? You obviously have no idea what pro wrestling is. Have you seen a match a day in your life? But anyway. And then we have a page here, or at least some panels, of swearing for the sake of swearing, which I personally can't stand, because it's just cursing for the sake of cursing. Hey, look at us, we're so edgy and adult and cool that we swear. Look, I know there's a lot of swearing in pro wrestling. I grew up watching the Attitude Era, okay? Well, I started with the New Generation days. The New Generation era, and then that fused sort of blood into and became the Attitude Era. So I'm plenty familiar with obscene gestures and profanity in wrestling. That's not my issue. My issue is that the profanity here just does not make any sense. it's not trying to be edgy in that cool way that appeals, you know, to the rebellious teenager inside, right? That's one of the interesting things about pro wrestling. It's that it's very lowbrow, it's very uncouth, but it's entertaining, right? It's kind of like that song, I got friends in low places, that type of thing, and that's fine. That's the appeal of it. It is, you know, gritty and in many ways, you know, profane and thumbing its nose at polite society. But you have to know how to do it in a way that's appealing. This is not appealing in the least. But anyway, then we get another page where apparently this girl, I have no idea who the heck she is angsting over a, I'm guessing a ladder match? I believe the text mentions a ladder match. It mentions a ladder match and apparently her falling on thumbtacks. But it doesn't make any sense because later on in the match, later on in the comic when the thumbtacks are introduced, this girl isn't the one to introduce them. It's an entirely different girl. But anyway, I actually liked this particular visual, which is why I used it, because it kind of reminded me of the bed of spikes and the pit in the Mortal Kombat games. So, yay. It reminded me of something. So, as I was saying, the spikes remind me of the Mortal Kombat games. So at the very least, it reminds me of something that I like. Continuing. And then we get the one guy ever shown in this comic, who apparently is an older wrestler. Maybe he's a road agent or something. I don't know who the heck he is, and I don't much care. But this is all he does. He just plays mentor. He doesn't do anything else. We don't learn anything about him. And this is it. This is the only male presence. This is the only male presence in the entire damn series. With the exception of one character and there being a bit of a tease about possibly having spent the weekend with two men, and even that gets twisted on its head toward the end, and I'll bring that up later. But with the exception of that, there's absolutely no mention of guys. This is professional wrestling, and there's no mention of men. Keep in mind that the talent, right, often gets involved with each other. Right, if you're a pro wrestling fan, you can rattle off the top of your head all the different types of rumors and affairs that have been over the years. In fact, one of the most famous ones is that Randy Savage was insanely jealous when it came to his wife Elizabeth and assumed that everybody either wanted her or that Hulk Hogan was sleeping with her or wanted to sleep with her and whatnot. There's always, you know, dating and jealousy when it comes to men and women in the business. Because guess what? You got a business where people are traveling and they become, you know, very, very close, working together. You know, most pro wrestlers are very attractive people. very, very physically attractive people, you know, in shape, very good looking. And guess what? Pairings happen. Even pairings you won't expect. To this day, I don't understand how in the world Brock Lesnar is married to Sable. But he is. And good for him. But so as I was saying, again, just nothing interesting. We don't learn anything about him. He's not cute. And he's the only guy featured in something as, I understand it's very camp, but pro wrestling is also incredibly heterosexual. I know people don't want to admit that because it's incredibly camp, but it is also incredibly heterosexual. So the fact that this is the only dude featured in a sport that is watched mainly by men, and that a lot of women watch because they like the handsome men. You only feature one guy, and he's older, and he's regular looking. If you were looking to get female readers, this was not it. This is not how you attract female readers. You want to attract female readers? Put a handsome-looking pro wrestler in your book. Just saying. So then we have the next, or at least the next somewhat important, nothing is important in this stupid comic, really. But anyway, so this is where, I don't even know how to explain it, I'll just read it. So it says here, I just wanted to get us all on the same page before tonight and to say, we are different from the Primas. There's apparently, I'm guessing, some sort of interpromotional thing going on, which makes no sense, because that's not how pro wrestling works. They don't do interpromotional. Companies are constantly competing and trying to put each other out of business. They're not really trying to help each other. But anyway, but it says here, we are different from the Primas. It isn't costumes or stories or muscles or any of that. Really? Really? Again, has anybody on the creative team of this book watched pro wrestling? All pro wrestling is costumes and stories and muscles. Why do you think people watch? Who? Howard, Teeny Howard, have you watched a pro wrestling match in your life? What are you talking about? What in the seven hells are you talking about? And then it continues saying, and here's the difference between us and them. Those women all work together now, but they won't always. They're real wrestlers in a way we aren't, for sure, because they're gonna have to go from promotion to promotion and fight for basic respect each time. That's a hard life, but it isn't what we do. We have each other. I don't know about you guys, but if Glow dies, and Glow eventually does die, in real life and no doubt in this comic too, because there's no way this comic is going anywhere. I'm not taking Zoya on the road to stand up against Reptilia, I don't know what the hell she is. In the ring, Zoya lives and dies with Glow. They're individuals trying to be a team. We're a team who's been trying all weekend to stand apart from each other, but we stand best together. What the hell is this? Is this supposed to be a critique of the nature of pro wrestling? Yes, backstage politics in pro wrestling are cutthroat. It's competition. Everybody's fighting to be the guy or the girl. Everybody's fighting for recognition, for time, for the boss's ear, for merch sales, for everything. That's the nature of the business. What are you talking about? Yes, the Primas, I guess, are the real wrestlers, because that's exactly what happens in real life wrestling. They go from promotion to promotion, looking for the best deal, right? Looking for people to work with and make money with. It's a image-driven, money-driven business. You are as valuable as the merch you sell. If that bothers you, Teeny Howard, if the competitive nature and cutthroat politics of professional wrestling bother you, then please don't write a comic about pro wrestling, because this group of girls here is supposed to be the good guys. I'm supposed to be cheering for them. What is your approach to this? That they're the bad news bears? Even if they are the bad news bears, they should at least go down fighting. Go down swinging. What the hell is this? Is this drivel? We're going to stand together. Yeah, that's not how pro wrestling works. Ask Bret Hart if fellow pro wrestlers stand with you. But anyway, then it says here, let's just go out there and lose spectacularly. Really? Let's go out there and lose spectacularly. Yes, wrestling is predetermined. There is a predetermined winner and loser. But nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to be the jobber. Yes, you have to make your opponent look good, but you don't want to be that wrestler who just ends up, being fodder. Nobody wants that. That should be the last. Losing should not be the goal here, or something to be proud of. What wrestlers take pride in is putting on a show, making sure that the fans leave happy. That's what they take pride in. And then you have this girl here talking about don't do anything weird, and then the other girl's like what? Okay, again, this is pro wrestling. This is a profession that has had characters and gimmicks such as the Boogeyman and Papa Shango, and even if you go international, you'll have women like Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto. Weird is what pro wrestling does. It does beauty, it does striking, it does weird, it does profane, obscene, socially unacceptable. It does a little bit of everything. What the hell are you talking about? And then we have pretty much no wrestling. You get like an elbow drop here, and then there's some grappling, diving. There's no psychology to these fights. There's barely any fighting, and get like a chin lock. I'm guessing that's a chin lock. There's there's just nothing here. It's not a match. She don't know how in the world she even got up onto the top rope. You don't see anything. There's no promos. It's hopeless. It's just hopeless. And then finally we get one character who actually looks like a damn pro wrestler from the 80s. This is exactly the one character who actually looks like a pro wrestler from the 1980s. Bad Luck Biscuit. I actually like this design. I like the boots, the sort of like I guess kind of like what is like a matador-ish type of approach right here. The boots, the jacket. It's a good look. I like it. It is definitely something that would have been popular back in the 1980s. I don't know why she calls herself Bad Luck Biscuit. I don't much care, but this is a cool look. This is about the first and last cool look you will find in this book. And then she throws the tacks. The tacks weren't even with her. She wasn't even featured earlier talking about the tacks. I'm guessing she's a heel. It says here in a stunningly dishonorable move, Bad Luck Biscuit seems to have thrown tacks into the ring. And this is a pretty nice visual here. Again, it's not great. The art is very, very weak. It's very sparse. But at least, there is some pop, something interesting. The colors are nice. I like the, I guess, what would it be, perspective here. And then it gets immediately ruined by her apparently just climbing the rope and doing a flying elbow drop onto thumbtacks and then losing the match. And it's never explained why. The fighting in a pro wrestling match must make sense. It's part of the storytelling. If she goes up to the top rope and throws herself down and does a flying elbow drop onto the thumbtacks for no reason at all, that's not a wrestling move, that's a botch. Botching is not good. If you botch a lot, you will get a bad reputation. Just ask Nia Jax. So, yeah, this is not good at all. This just makes no sense. And then you have this lady trying to pretend to being a luchadora. Yeah, this lady pretending to be a luchadora. Oh God. This hurts my soul. This hurts my very soul. Ay. And then, of course, she loses the mask, and we get like the one decent wrestling move here, which is the short arm clothesline. Actually, some impact to it, and then she ends up winning the match. So surprisingly enough. And then we have like one actual decent looking match here between, I think, they're both supposed to be Russian characters. I think the one in the red is supposed to be like heel, like a communist or something. And then the one on top of her is supposed to be a play on Anastasia Romanov, right, the princess. And instead she refers to herself as like Anastasia or Anastasia, something to that effect. It's goofy and silly, but at least this actually kind of resembles a wrestling match. I mean, you got a hold here, you got the camera shot here, the tapping. The only bad part is all this talking, right? You're not supposed to cut a promo in the middle of a match. You cut the promo and you trash talk before the match. You don't do it during the match. You might swear during the match, you might taunt during the match, but you're not supposed to be saying things like, trying to see here, 1 second. You're not supposed to be trying to cut a promo as someone is trying to hurt you. You're not supposed to be saying things like, I melted the throne and turned it into tanks. Or, we have no throne for you. We fight for dominance and glucose packets. That's not how this works. That's not how this works at all. But anyway, at least it actually does somewhat remind me of the various camera angles that you'll get when you're watching a pro wrestling match on TV. Although it looks very different. I actually went to a few pro wrestling shows when I was in my early 20s. It looks very different when you're in the stands. No less fun, but the perspective is a lot different. I prefer the home presentation, especially since the seats are incredibly tight. They're not too expensive, but dear God are they small. And I am not a small woman, so I enjoyed it, but I think it'll be a while before I ever go to a live event again. But we'll see what happens. So then there's that. Come on. There. And then, again, it seems like there's this interpromotional thing going on. It says here that I wish you spent slightly more time on technique. That's the best show we've done in months. Where? How? What was the gate? How much merch was sold? How do you know it was a good show? It doesn't explain anything. How do you know it was a good show? It doesn't talk about fan feedback or anything. How do you know it was a good show? And it says here, we're struggling as much as anyone in this industry, and I have a feeling we'll be sharing our time slots for a long time. This is not how pro wrestling works. If these two are supposed to be from different promotions, different companies, as I said earlier, that's not how professional wrestling works. That's not how it works at all. Companies are trying to put each other out of business. WWE put WCW out of business. They weren't trying to help them stay afloat. So this makes no sense. I can understand this a little bit more if maybe it was like they were like a stable or a faction within the same company, and they were going up against each other. That's a tried and true storyline technique for the professional wrestling industry, right? Whether it's DX versus the corporation, or the corporation versus the Stone Cold Steve Austin, or whatever it is. That's tried and true, but that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. This comic's just a bunch of nothing. Nothing makes sense. It doesn't even make sense for pro wrestling. I mean, there's no storytelling at all, no promos, no excitement. It's just blah. And then, this is what I was talking about earlier. So we have this character who is on the far corner here, Melrose, as she had implied earlier that she might have spent a hot weekend with two men. And then, of course, so this girl here asks, so Melrose, what's up with you and those two guys? Oh, they were gay. This reminds me of a comment that I believe the name is The Leftover, left on my most recent video, talking about how there's like no heterosexuality in comics anymore. And yeah, this is proof positive. Yeah, it would have been better to actually play it straight and have it that she did indeed have a threesome. with these two guys. But no, you take something that is almost disgustingly heterosexual, like professional wrestling, and then you go, oh no, they were gay. They were totes gay. That's why so many, pro wrestlers date each other and marry each other, because everyone is gay in pro wrestling. Oh my goodness, this is sad. This is sad. To the creative team, especially to Teenie Howard, never, ever, 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 ever in life again write a comic about pro wrestling. You have no idea what the hell you are talking about. And then we have the final image from the story, which is, we're working on our technique. Are you working on yours? See you at Grapplepalooza, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, your favorite losers. Really? Really? Was this meant to be funny? Am I supposed to cheer for them despite the fact that they're awful? They don't have a look. They don't have a gimmick. They're not interesting as characters, whether they're in character or not. I don't know who the hell anybody's name is, and I do not care. I don't care who these characters are. I don't care who they are as people or who they are as performers. You have failed. When you show me your cast of characters and I could not care less about who they are or what they are, you have failed. So yes, indeed, you are a loser. The creative team on this book is a bunch of losers because they lost my interest. And then we have the casting call, which has, I'm going to be clear, I am pointing this out and isolating it, but there's a cast of characters 2 pages long at the end of the book. Thank you for putting your cast of characters at the end of the book, at the end of the nearly 30-page comic book. Put your cast of characters at the end. That makes sense. But anyway, we have such culturally rich and respectful gimmick names as the Welfare Queen and Beirut, the Mad Bomber. I have 2 words for you with that one, honey. Muhammad Hassan. But anyway, that is that. That is this trash comic. It goes nowhere. It does nothing at all. And unlike pro wrestling, it's not loud, it's not entertaining, it's not exciting, it's not sexy, it is nothing. This comic book is blah. That is all it is. It is blah. It is not worth the time. It is not worth the energy. It is not worth the paper it's printed on. It is awful. If you're a pro wrestling fan like myself, do not read this. Go and watch a good match instead. Go and watch, I don't care, any match. Any match. I don't care which company. I don't care between who. Actually enjoy pro wrestling. Because if you're not enjoying it, then something is wrong. And this was not enjoyable. So that's all I can say. This book deserves to burn in the 9th circle of hell, because it is a betrayal of everything that makes professional wrestling cool and fun and interesting. And damn it, if you can't be fun and interesting, get the hell out. So anyway, that's my comic review. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you around. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.